Hello and hi YouTube family, this is Celestial and you are tuning into Celestial Evolution. Celestial Evolution. Welcome back to my channel. I'm just gonna dive right in today, okay? You saw the quote. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result. Now, the tagline of this episode is discipline and consciousness. Why did I choose this? Because I believe that it is so relevant in today's society to be able to discipline ourselves for what our American culture grants us is a state of abundance. And when you have too much, it seems like your priorities get skewed, right? You don't really know what to focus on. We usually, in what the mainstream, especially social media, or if we look at celebrities, what we usually tend to go towards is a frame of satisfying our primal needs. Why did I choose discipline and consciousness to discuss today's episode? Because I have been on a 6-year fitness journey, okay? And I say 6 years because I think that's when I've become most conscious about my journey. And as a kid, you know, I did sports and everything because I have two brothers, but I have a brother who is a year and a half younger than I. And he indulged in sports, like that was his niche. He was the captain of every team and he was a beast. And so I wanted to have an identity too, you know, I wanted to be able to participate in a team and have camaraderie within that kind of element. And so I joined basketball, I did a little bit of tennis, I did track and field. And that kind of introduced me to athleticism. My family was very into all of that, physical prowess, and they always utilize their bodies, and we're a little bit superficial in that sense too. It's like, you know, not only can we do this, but we look good too, you know what I'm saying? But over the course of time, as life happened, it became less of a priority to train myself to understand what fitness actually meant to my life, because I was very privy by ways of genetics to be fit without really having to do too much. I could eat whatever I wanted, and you know, I still was decent looking. But over time, I started feeling a little bit bad about myself. I think I reached up to about like 180 or something like that. And this was at a time where I was working like 3 jobs and I was eating fast food every night, and it was just wreaking havoc on my body. And my boyfriend at the time, I was about maybe 21. He was a martial artist and he was pristine in his look. I mean, he'd gotten a little bit soft, but he was training to be in the Olympics. And so his body was fantastic, and his discipline in regards to what he was, which was a martial artist, was very inspirational to me. And he would work out with his friends all the time, and you know, I was working a lot and I didn't really have the motivation to really want to do it. But you know, especially in society today, if you're on social media, you see a whole bunch of girls looking really pretty, and you know, maybe your man is looking farther away from you, because you know, if we're being honest with each other, because I like to be full frontal with this, but you start to notice things about yourself. It's like, I'm not feeling too good about me, so let's do something about it. And he encouraged me to start running, because he would run like with his friends, like maybe once a week or something, a long distance run. And we lived in a very beautiful area, and it was like next to the river, and so he would encourage me to go run. And at first it was terrible. I was itchy. I believe it was because of the lack of circulation within my legs, and it was just really a bad situation. And full disclosure, this video is going to be long, okay? So like the lack of circulation, but when I started doing it, I felt a lot better. And I wanted to do more. He was doing weight training, so I started doing that, and just incorporating things in my body started changing really quickly, because as I said, I was an athlete and I have really good genetics, first of all. But it was insightful for me to have this physical manifestation and observing the internal need for that manifestation, and understanding what I was doing and being more conscious about what I was doing led me to this discussion with you this discussion that I would like to have with you all today, which is discipline and consciousness. My fitness journey led me to this, but I, in this process, have really assessed the understanding that discipline and consciousness is going to relate to every facet of my life. And the more that I grow, the more that I understand the need for the conjunction of these two ideas. Now, I'm going to be reading from my phone because I have it written out in a way that is going to be the best way that I can give you this information. And I'll be a little bit more professional later on, and I'll get a little teleprompter and everything and put it up so I can focus on the ideas. But I want to talk about consciousness and discipline, and from my way of understanding, I like to break things down into context. And in order to do that, we have to observe the minute details. And so, discipline and consciousness. Let's talk about that. What do these words mean to us, and why does it matter? As I said, context is very important. Now, I broke it down because if you don't understand the word connotation, connotation, before I proceed, is defined as the associated or secondary meaning of a word or expression in addition to its primary meaning. And so, again, basically connotation is the way that you subjectively, your own self feels about a word, aside from what it actually means. So, let's use home as an example, okay? And home, by definition, is a place of residence, right? It's a brick and mortar that you establish as your residence that you can use for means of identification. Whereas home, connotatively, which kind of elicits emotion, home can mean a place of peace, a place of sanctuary, right? It can be the place where you find your solitude, your restful place. Whereas some kids don't want to go home. Home is a place of destruction. It is a place of disaster. It is a place of violence and tyranny, and it could be a place of evil, of disorder, and these are the connotations of that, okay? Now, when we think of discipline, let's start there. Discipline, by definition, has actually two categories of words, which is a noun and a verb, and this is categorized by the Merriam-Webster dictionary. As a noun, discipline is defined as an orderly or prescribed conduct of pattern or behavior. I like that word prescribed because it kind of explains it as if discipline is the antidote to all of our ailments. Discipline as a noun is also described as self-control. So the analyzation of discipline as a noun connotes to me that it involves self-empowerment, right? Like, okay, the connotation of discipline in this form would be, you know, I'm disciplining myself because I know that discipline is going to get me to the next level. I know that eating my broccoli is going to help me to get the nutrients that I need from my body to get to that next level, right? That's the connotation in the form of a noun. Now, self-discipline in the form of a noun affords a sense of power, correct? That if we feed into the prescribed discipline, we can cure our ailments. What is an ailment? An ailment is a disease, a disconnect, something that lags us. It will be hard to enforce these disciplines unto ourselves, but therein lies the point of discipline, right? It's never going to be easy. Nothing worth having is ever easy. It takes a little bit of discipline. Now, the other definition of discipline is classified as a verb. And a verb, we know, is an action. In this form, discipline is imposed on us, forced upon us, placed upon us, rather it being our choice. According to the Merriam-Webster, the first definition in the verb form is to bring a group under control, to impose, to force order upon. Now, the connotation in that way of discipline is kind of like being a kid, right? Where you are under this tyrannical voice, whether it be your parents, whether it be your teachers, whatever it may be. This entity, this authority figure, it lingers on top of you and oppresses your creativity, your individualism. And this part of discipline is what some people connect it to. It's like discipline by your parents, you know, getting whooped or whatever it may be, getting grounded. It's like this oppression of your own self. And so that is another form, another connotation of discipline. You see there's like a positive and a negative. Usually that's how I kind of connect connotation. It's like there's this highlight of a word and then a downside of a word. Now, these are true definitions of the word. If you go to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, this is the way that discipline is described. But as an individual, when we think of disciplines, our minds will lean towards one connotation more heavily than the other, right? Discipline is either a bad thing or a good thing. And so when I think of discipline as an adult, I enforce it on myself as a behavior that will usually lead me to what I need, what I actually want. You know, I want this beautiful body. I see it on the, you know, videos that I watch in regards to the fitness creators that I follow, and I know that it's possible. Therefore, if you hear heavy breathing, that's my dog. He's ridiculous. But I know that it's possible. Therefore, discipline is going to help me get to that level because I know that's what they're doing. I'm listening to what they're saying. They're not eating, or they're eating, but they're not eating bad things, and they're working out 3 times a day, or they're following new trends, or just really experimenting with their bodies. That takes discipline. So as a child, in the child mindset of it, discipline was very tyrannical, right? Usually enforced by our parents or some other form of authority figure that oppressed our free-spiritedness. That's discipline, okay? Now we move on to consciousness. Consciousness, also known as awareness, is defined as, there's 2 definitions. First, the quality or state of being aware especially of something within oneself. I would call that the quality or state of being aware, especially of something within oneself. I would describe that as a level of introspection. I would actually describe that as introspection, which is looking within yourself and being able to analyze the subjective in the presence of the objective, which is the outside reality. And so in being aware of oneself and being completely analytical of what we're feeling within ourselves, we can be better understanding of the world around us, because we're all connected. We all have an interconnectedness, which is our own humanism. And I think that introspection really allows us, if we really take the time to assess our feelings and in the state that we're in, we can really assess how the outside world is feeling as well. The second definition is the state or fact of being conscious of an external state, object, or fact. The state of or fact being conscious of an external object, state, or fact. That's just being aware, basically, of what is going on externally, apart from our own paradigm, which is our own way of seeing things from our own subjective reality. I have been very conscious of the daily disciplines that are necessary for me to function every day efficiently, not just surviving, but thriving. If you've watched any of my other episodes, I'm a big advocate of that. Being aware of the whys of the implementation on discipline is important in regards to sustainability. What does that mean? Being aware of why you're disciplining yourself and why the wants of it, the need of it, is going to help you progress and help it to be sustainable in your life, because you understand the why of what you're doing, not necessarily just going by trend or whatever you're seeing on, and creating this sort of form of discipline from a very superficial means will just create superficial results. You're going to do it for the time that you gain whatever it is that you want, and that's it. You know, I want a nice body, so I'm going to diet for this. I'm going to do my crash course diet. I can do it fast. And then you get it, you go to the event that you wanted to go to, and you looked good, and now you're back to square one, because that was all that you really had goals for, right? You didn't have long-term plans for what you were doing. The fact is that we need to be more aware that the more disciplined we can be, the more we can achieve in regards to our goals. In understanding the whys and being completely congruent with the pathway that the why entails is going to lead us to this manifestation of our goals. Manifestation just means to bring to life what we want. I mentioned earlier that as a kid I was oppressed by the word discipline because it was enforced upon me. It was like forced upon me. Was this feeling valid? Yes, absolutely. But because I was a child who was dependent and conditioned to believe and have faith in authority and its carved path of what is right and wrong, I didn't have the autonomy, the experience, or the wherewithal to formulate any other opinion. Therefore, what I kind of experienced was king, because I didn't have any other point of reference. I wasn't able to go out and do things by myself because I was a kid. With consciousness, education, and experience, you begin to question authority and the discipline it enforces. That's why having... I don't remember, it was probably from a class that I took in regards to child development, and it was talking about family and the levels of dependence. There's dependency, which is usually within childhood range, and then you go to independence, which is when you become after childhood, you become an adult or semi-adult, and you go off into the world to find your own independence. And then you find the bliss point, which is interdependence. And interdependence is the combination of independence and dependence that creates the sweet spot, because two minds think better than one, right? And when we find that person, that partner in our life that creates this kind of beautiful symphony of combined efforts, we create interdependence, which is what we hope to strive towards. But I kind of digress there. So again, where that came from is that with consciousness, education, and experience, we begin to question authority and the disciplining forces. As a kid, you can't really argue against what you're being told, because you don't have any other way of doing things, because you know what your parents say is pretty much law, right? Until you go out into the world and it's like you realize your parents aren't maybe the most perfect things that they portrayed themselves to be, and you find other ways that you might revere more than what your parents taught you. No shade to parents, but we're not perfect by any means. I want to bring up quickly Jordan Peterson, who I've been talking about, and I will actually link a couple of his episodes below that really helped this idea. And in general, he's just a wonderful philosopher. I believe he is a Canadian psychoanalyst, and he's been doing that for many years, and he's come up with all of these lectures, and he's really insightful. And he speaks in one of his lectures about the elusiveness of life, and that the grand scheme of it can be inundating, which is overwhelming because of so much that's happening, right? Life is crazy. It's everything and nothing at the same time. It's a different story. There is so much to be explored, so much to be experienced, so many avenues that we can tackle. Though as logical and rational creatures, we must be aware that we cannot do and be all. Therefore, we must settle. The end-all and be-all of words. Settle. Settle has quickly gained a negative connotation in our day and age. We want it all. We need it all in order to validate our insatiable ego. Though why this has become a trend can be discussed in a later episode, if you all wish for me to discuss it, of course. Settle is a word that closes a lot of doors, a lot of possibilities. It limits us to only a few flavors of ice cream rather than the gamut of experimentation. Baskin Robbins, anyone? It's boring, right? It's unadventurous. Yet, if we really think about it, it is absolutely necessary for our evolution. I envisioned the early explorers of our beautiful America, and they eventually had to settle in an area so that they could raise their families, implement purpose and meaning in a community, therefore creating order in the chaos that they were primarily exposed to, because that is the driving factors of adventurers. They're looking for what? The possibilities, right? Chaos is exciting. It's untamed, and with a little plowing, don't take that literally, or you can, we can have a stake in its potential submissiveness, right? Yet we can't tame all beasts. Sometimes we have to limit ourselves to only a few things to truly formulate that order, right? There's too much to do all at once. We can only focus on a few things at once. That's realistic. In our Western society, discipline is subjugated to the superficial parts of life. Tame your libido, tame your diet, tame your spending habits. Though in an extremely tame society, which we are in if you live in America, we are subject to the dangers of our imagination. And with unlimited resources, the unlimited resources that we have, we are prone to use them all in hopes of advancement. Though, how much is too much? And when does it become detrimental to the plight of humanity? The plight of humanity is to find purpose, to be of value. Yet value is very misconstrued these days and unfortunately has no foundation in standards. In this term of standards, I would say that deals with morality, which we'll discuss in another episode. Anything goes. Life is about expansion, yes. If we know anything by now, is that anything we think is possible. It's possible. How much do we have to do to prove that to ourselves? Soon the creation of a black hole will be formed and suck us all back into oblivion. My godmother came up with that theory because she was watching like some sort of like science episode, and like these nerds were like, excuse me, I don't use nerds as a derogatory term. I'm actually obsessed with nerds and I think they're amazing. But sometimes I feel like they will be the demise of our world because they're just too curious, you know, and they're making black holes in their basement and stuff like that. It's just going to suck us all up when we start from point A again, right? We are everything and nothing at the same time. Which brings us back to the point of the needed intersection of discipline and consciousness. The awareness of our infinite possibility allows us to assess the never-ending adventure that can be had, right? But if we think, what then do we show for it but a multitude of experiences that we never explored in depth or tackle to formulate those experiences to create purpose? Discipline in this context boils down to the idea of, yes, we can do anything we want, but we need to focus on things, have a consciousness that will give us purpose of the why. And that will help make the world we leave behind a better place. The world is an expansive word in itself, but the world I am speaking of, the world, the environment that you're in, the worldly bubble that you influence every single day. World, which we tend to use synonymously with Earth, by definition has connection to planets, the earthly state of human existence. But a definition of world that truly spoke to me was the sphere or scene of one's life and action. The sphere or scene of one life's action, what you do within your own life. Make this your movie. A movie is comprised of organization, right? You have your opening scene to understand the characters, the middle, which is usually the climax of the movie, to understand the nature of these characters and what they've done thus far to create this drama. And then you have the conclusion, which is hopefully summated in a way that offers you a lesson, gives you insight as to how people can act, what those repercussions are, and the resolution, or at least the ending of it, to give you insight about what to do and what not to do. If we learn the lesson that life teaches us by indulging in the conjunction of discipline and consciousness, which I feel is absolutely necessary for us to understand this lesson, because without that consciousness and then the discipline to enforce the manifestation of that consciousness, if we don't learn that lesson, then we can't articulate it well enough to teach it to the next generation. So we need to take the time to learn it. But I'm going to end it here because I'm about 32 minutes in. And I want to just say that life is a daily balance of the things that you want in your mind and putting it into the physical realm. I think we need to focus a little bit more on things that will help our future generations rather than just benefit our own selves in the moment. Though self-love is a real thing, and that's another episode we'll talk about. But I'm going to leave you with that, because that's where my mind's at right now. And combining this idea is very important. Or combining these ideas are very important, especially in this day and age now, where I feel like morality is becoming extinct, and we're truly exalting a character, people of character that have no character, actually, and they're just audacious, and they exist because we feed into it, and we like audaciousness because we're so subservient to this authority figure, and discipline has crippled us. And shoot, actually this might just be a whole nother episode about oppression and what we've been fooled into thinking has value. But discipline is a daily thing. When it goes back to fitness for myself, I'm still learning things every single day. I'm still trying to discipline myself not to eat the crappy foods and eat the whole foods, and putting it into my daily regimen every single day so that I can be big and strong, have the energy to do my workouts, and be the best that I can be. I'll leave you with that. Again, you have been tuning into Celestial Evolution, and this has been about discipline and consciousness, and I hope that you take these tools and nuggets into life with you, because we truly need more conscious people in this world. So, with that, I will say thank you very much for tuning into Celestial Evolution, and I hope that you keep looking, that you keep learning, and you keep evolving. Have a beautiful evening, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye!